I wanted to ask you a question. Have you ever felt like that no matter how hard you work, that something invisible is holding you back from reaching your goals, no matter what that is? It's like this silent, sabotaging thing living in the shadows of your mind, and it's keeping you stuck in place. Well, today I'm going to help you get into the world of subconscious blocks, which are these hidden obstacles or barriers that really could be the missing piece to your journey to success. So I want you to get ready to uncover the secrets of your own mind and then learn how to break free from these unseen chains. So I'd love for you to trust me on this, that this episode could be the game changer that you've been waiting for. Welcome to the Be a Better You podcast. I'm your host, Allison K. Dagny, a passionate women's empowerment coach dedicated to guiding you towards your highest potential. Join me each week as I dive into empowering strategies and mindset shifts to help you rise above obstacles and thrive in every aspect of your life, empowering you to reach your goals, unleash your true potential, and live life on your own terms. Learn how to unlock your inner strength with tools, tips, and techniques to transform into the best version of you. Tune in and let's embark on this journey together. Your empowerment starts now. I want to make a distinction between a subconscious block and a subconscious belief. So if you've been listening to me on this podcast, you know that your subconscious is driving 95% of the show. And a subconscious belief is anything that you've been programmed with throughout your life. So when you were a child and you learned certain things, you were told or taught, your culture sort of embedded you with subconscious beliefs. The way that you perceive the world are your personal sets of subconscious beliefs. So I'm going to share a little story about how part of my subconscious beliefs were formed. So I was very, very little. I was probably 3 to 4 years old. And I remember this story so vividly because I was doing some inner work to try to go back to the first wound that I could remember, like all the way back as far as I could go. And this was the very first wound that I could remember. And this wound happened at the beach, and I absolutely love the beach to this day. But my family were visiting my aunt who lived in Florida. And I had never been there, obviously, and I didn't know anything about anything because I was so tiny. And my mom and my aunt were on lounge chairs on the beach, and like the propped up kind, you know, like the old sort of like vinyl-y, stretchy lawn chairs. I remember seeing those. And my dad was in the ocean. And of course it's very loud with the water and the waves. And I remember looking down at my feet and seeing these little, I don't even know what they're called, sand crabs or something. I don't know, but they were little. They were probably about, I don't know, the size of a dime. But every time the tide would wash in, these little bugs or crabs, I don't even know what sand crabs, I don't even know what they were called, but they were being washed up, and then they were digging down into the sand to try to get back down. And I freaked out. I was this child, had no idea. And I'm standing there with these like bugs or crabs, or I don't really know what they were, but I remember seeing them, and I remember that they were digging back down into the sand and they were around my feet. So I was screaming and crying and asking my mom if I could get up on the lounge chair with her. And her response was very nonchalant. She's just chatting with, she's probably in her late 20s at this point, chatting with my aunt, and I am having an absolute meltdown. And I remember looking out at the ocean and screaming for my dad, but he couldn't hear me either because I just wanted somebody to pick me up. I just wanted to be off of the sand because I was really scared. And as I started to think about this as an adult today, the things that were going through my mind at that time was, and I couldn't have cognitively known this back then, but now I can see it very clearly, that nobody cares about me. Nobody wants to hear me. My emotions aren't valid. I should be quiet. I shouldn't be so dramatic. This isn't a big deal, right? So these were the very first kinds of programs that were being assimilated into my tiny little sponge brain. And that really shaped me, right? You don't think about how the things that you say, do, don't do, whatever, could be impacting children, right? I seriously tell my parents thought that was going to change me as a human throughout my life or shape me, but it did. It totally did, because I carried those belief systems throughout my entire life. And it wasn't until in my 40s that I was able to actually start to change that narrative and actually shift those programs, right? Because that wasn't the extent of my programming. That was just the very first one that I can remember. So beyond that, right? Because from the time you're born to about 7 or 8 years old, you are being programmed, whether you realize it or not. And most of us have no idea. We just enter this world and we start getting programmed by our caregivers, by our societies, by religion, cultures, friends, family, all of the things, right? We are becoming programmed. And that's because our brain is in what you call a theta wave state from 0 to 8. And that theta wave state means you are highly susceptible to taking in all the things from your environment, all the senses, all the external beliefs and stories, and you're starting to make meaning of these things inside your little brain. And then that develops into partly who you are. So the reason I'm telling you this story is because you may have a very early memory, and you can get into these things through meditation, through journaling. You really need to get your brain into the subconscious state in a really relaxed way before you're probably going to be able to tap your earliest memory. But I would say that if you try this out, you might find the source of some of your personal programming. So again, your subconscious beliefs are going to be from that programming. But I wanted to explain to you the difference between a block and a belief, right? Because the beliefs are things like I said before, like I'm not good enough, or people don't want to hear me, or my voice shouldn't be heard, or I should be quiet, right? Those are the beliefs, things that are statements of judgment or things that aren't necessarily true. But the subconscious blocks are different. The subconscious blocks are things like fear of failure or self-doubt. And these are things that are like these overhanging umbrellas to the subconscious belief. So you might even realize that, oh, I have a fear of failure, or I have a perfectionist attitude, or I feel like that I'm carrying feelings of self-doubt throughout my life, whatever that might be, right? These are the overhanging things. Beneath those overhanging subconscious blocks would be the beliefs that are creating that, right? That are creating the block for you. So, when we have these overhanging subconscious blocks, what they do is they keep us from progress. They keep us from achieving our goals. They keep us from being our true, authentic self. And that's a problem, right? Because we should be able to be our truest, most authentic self. So imagine if I was that little girl back then, years and years ago, and I was expressing myself and expressing my emotions, and my mom had picked me up and put me on her lap and explained to me what was going on, and explained the little bugs and how they're unharmful, maybe taught me about them, wrapped me up and said, it's okay. I understand that you're upset, and instead of dismissing me, now I'm not blaming my mom whatsoever. I don't know what was going on in her life at that time. Maybe she hadn't seen her sister in a really long time. Maybe there was judgment around how she was parenting me. I have no clue, right? I don't know. I haven't even talked to my mom about this story. And she probably wouldn't even remember it, honestly, because to me, it was a big, big deal, right? It was a trauma that I was experiencing. It was a huge deal for me. But to her, it may not have really sat the same way, and most likely did not. But imagine if that had been handled in a different way, right? That my voice does deserve to be heard, and that if I have a problem, I'm going to be supported, and that I have people that back me up, and that it's okay to be upset about things, right? Those were not the programs. Those were not the things that I carried with me throughout my life. So then I ultimately started adopting more and more and more of those things, seeing proof of it as I went along in my life, and then becoming more of a codependent, becoming more of a people pleaser, shutting myself down just for the sake of others so that people didn't have to listen to it, right? So that's why it's so important, because if you carry these subconscious blocks, then it can basically keep you from being you, and it can also keep you from achieving your goals. Because here's exactly why. If I wanted to achieve something but carry beliefs that my voice doesn't deserve to be heard, I should be quiet, blah, 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 how am I going to make those things happen in a real life scenario? I won't, because I'll be too afraid. I'll be afraid of rejection. I'll be afraid that people will silence me, right? Or that I have these deep beliefs that I don't deserve it. So why would I ever even go for it, right? So there are things that may be happening inside of you that you aren't fully unaware of. That's why it's in the subconscious. But once you start to unpack these things and you start to bring them to the surface, then you can actually take a really good look at it and use different tools to start to change that, to get you back to who you were before all that programming happened to you. So I wanted to share another story about a client of mine who was struggling with her own subconscious blocks and how this could maybe help you. Okay, so this client, she had come to me, and I remember very, very vividly the very first call that we were on, and she was in tears, just a blubbering mess on that very first call. She was out of an emotionally abusive marriage of upwards of 20 years and had been just in this deep, dark place for a very long time. She had essentially made everything about her ex and had started to lose herself in the process. And I'm very familiar with this, and maybe you are too. And this is this whole, trying to reach these unreachable expectations and make the other person happy at the expense of yourself. And every time I talk to somebody who comes to me in this way, I immediately reassure them, right? I am extremely confident in the work that I do because I know how powerful it is. It has helped me, and it has helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, well, probably thousands of people, because other coaches use the same method, not just me. And I just feel this immense sense of peace as I'm explaining how this is going to be so helpful, and reassuring my clients that they're in good hands, because they are. And I could still see and sense the skepticism in my client's face and in her words. And that's valid, because for so long, people, who have been abused try to heal, try the things, go to therapy, and nothing seems to work. But the reason why it doesn't work is because for most people, they're not getting to the root cause of the problem. They're not getting to the source of why they can't make these things happen, why they keep returning to the abuse, why they keep getting triggered, or why they can't stop thinking about it, or why they can't actually move forward and write the book that they've been wanting to write, or whatever it might be, right? This is all about being able to push through those blocks. So we had a 12-week program set up, and the first the first 2 weeks are really dedicated to understanding the subconscious mind, because that's really key and important to doing this work. And so by the third or fourth session, my client was actually starting to show up very differently on those sessions and was having a very different attitude. And she was no longer in tears and feeling completely defeated. And we finished our program, and she gave me an absolutely beautiful review. But the thing that she did throughout the process was reprogrammed these blocks that were keeping her from being able to be this independent woman to do things on her own, because she had so heavily relied on her ex. And I still remember the day that she sent me a text of her new car title. And it was the most empowering and exciting message that she sent me, because she had never done something like this before. She had to go to the DMV, she had to get all these things together, right? And that might not seem like a big deal to some people, but that is absolutely a huge accomplishment for somebody who's been emotionally abused and under the thumb and rule of a narcissistic abuser for 20 plus years. It's a huge thing, right? So in the process of our coaching, what we had done overall, like, it wasn't like, oh, the goal is to be able to get the car in her name. That wasn't the goal. What we were doing was we were getting to the root of what was blocking her from being independent and feeling like that she could do things on her own. So then that was just a byproduct of that. And now she's doing more and more and more things on her own. So the reason I want you to understand this fully is because when we have these kinds of emotional blocks, these subconscious beliefs that are getting in the way of being able to function or take action or achieve our goals or do even the simplest of tasks, when this is happening, it takes a very, very, very big toll on us. It often makes us feel like even worse, right? Because it's like, well, I just can't do it, or, I'm just not able to, or there's something wrong with me. And I'm here to tell you that's just not true. That is just not true. You just need to get to the source, which is your subconscious mind. Now, the work that I do, I use a tool called rapid reprogramming, and that tool helps you rewire and reprogram those negative stories and beliefs that just aren't true, so that you can actually take the action that you want and feel the way that you want, right? But I also use human design, and human design is your soul blueprint. And basically, it's how you were designed before you came into this world. And if you're not familiar with human design, you can always message me. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. And you can also go onto my website and run your own free human design reading, and it will pop up for you and give you some sort of surface level information, but enough to get you started. And what I do is I use a method to help people figure out what's going on a subconscious level for them. And human design helps do that too. So I have tools and I have resources and all these things, and I tailor it specifically to you, right? Because it's not one size fits all. Life does not work like that. And what might work for you might not work for someone else. So I have to make sure that I'm being very intuitive in my guidance for you to help you get where you want to go. So I want to give you some signs of subconscious blocks so that you know what to look for in case this is happening to you. One of the things would be self-sabotage, but sometimes people don't really know what that is. And it could be like procrastination on things. But interestingly, there are people who are designed to wait till the very last minute to do things. And that's not really procrastination in the sense of your human design. So you want to know about these things because it also gives you permission to be you. Like, no, you have to let the pressure build before you take action. Some people do. Some people do not, right? But self-sabotage in general could be like making excuses for not doing your goals. Like, oh, I don't have enough time, or it's not good for me, or I don't have enough startup money, like whatever, right? So self-sabotage can also be something that you're not even aware of that's happening. But that's what my job is to help you figure that out. Negative self-talk is another way that you could find out if you have subconscious block. So if you hear yourself doubting yourself and your abilities and your worth and thinking things like you'll never succeed or you don't deserve it, that is an indication of a subconscious block. Emotional reactions, right? So if you're feeling off, if you're feeling irritated or anxious or angry, right? Things like that, subconscious blocks, that's an indication. And that is also an indication in your human design that you may not be living in alignment with how you're designed to be. And I would be able to tell you that pretty easily. The other one is like avoiding behavior, right? So avoiding opportunities that could lead to growth or success. So let's say that you need to network with writers to help you get your book started, but you're like, oh, I'm going to sign up for this little webinar, but I'm not actually just going to at the last minute not show up, right? So if you're avoiding things that you know could potentially help you, there could be a subconscious block there. Another thing would be like different patterns in your life. So if you notice that there are patterns coming up of similar things that set you back, or if you're like continually attracting the same kind of negative relationships or the same kind of negative outcomes, right? These patterns are indicators that there could be a subconscious block. Physical symptoms, right? So if you're having physical ailments and no clear medical cause for it, or if you're feeling really tired, exhausted, or drained, and these things are because it could be a combination of subconscious blocks and not living in your design, in your human design. And I would be able to tell you those things as well. By doing like a human design reading, I could figure it out pretty easily. Another thing, perfectionism, right? So if you have really high standards for yourself, if you're really critical of yourself or your efforts or the work that you're doing or how you operate in relationships, right? This level of perfectionism is a subconscious block. Okay, a big one for a lot of people. Another one is fear of failure, fear of success, either one of those things, right? So if you are paralyzed by this fear of like making mistakes or failing, or if you're worrying about how many responsibilities there are to get to where you want to be or have the success that you want to have, any sort of like debilitating or paralyzing fear of like, oh, I don't, like most of the time people consciously will say like, no, I do want to have this success and I do want to start a business and I do, that's your logic brain, right? But the subconscious block that I'm talking about are the things that are under the surface that you're not fully aware of that are actually driving your behaviors, right? So if you did have subconscious blocks about fear of failure, fear of success, or something like that, that's going to keep you from achieving your goals or getting where you want to go or moving from point A to point B. The other would be, another one would be lack of motivation. Lack of motivation or a drive or enthusiasm to do what you want to do, or struggling to find the energy to take action, that can be an indication of subconscious block. There's also an element of your human design that you'd want to look at too, that you can determine where this can be impacted and how you can help yourself become more motivated. So that's a good thing. Another one is being indecisive. So if you're having a hard time making decisions, even little decisions, right? Or over analyzing things to the point of where you can't even take action because there's like too much happening. But again, we would want to uncover the subconscious blocks that are causing this behavior, right? That's what's causing the behavior. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just something is in your subconscious causing that behavior. And we can also look at your human design, because people are made to make decisions differently, right? Not everybody is supposed to be able to make a decision on the fly, like in 30 seconds. I know specifically my boyfriend, he is very quick at making decisions. And I'm like, I need to think about it. Give me 24 hours. Like, I'm not designed the same way. And you can find these things in your human design, and you can look at the subconscious aspects of your human design and what's happening in your belief system, right? And that's what I help people with. The other thing is comparison. Comparison, you've heard this, is the thief of joy. Comparing yourself to others. So if you're constantly comparing your progress and your success to other people, that's what this is going to reveal, that you have a subconscious block here, right? So if you find yourself like, oh, she's better than me, or oh, You're scrolling on social media and you're seeing, you want to be a coach, and you're seeing all these other coaches out there are doing this and this and this, and you're not doing any of it. Maybe you're not meant to do it that way. Maybe you're meant to do it your way, right? And maybe you have this like feeling of inadequacy or jealousy when you see other people's success. These are just, again, these are subconscious blocks that are in your way, and we help you figure out what they are and then reprogram them out, so that once that stuff is moved, and I'm saying like clear the crap, once that crap is cleared, you have a clear pathway to get where you need to go. And then the last one that I wanted to mention was being stuck in the past. And I've talked about this a lot, like ruminating on things like past failures or the traumas or the, feeling in this like level of victimhood. Or you just have these thoughts that keep replaying in your mind, right? And then what happens is you're letting those past experiences dictate your current actions, your current belief systems, and those kinds of things are blocks that will get in your way. And then we would get into your subconscious, and then we would start reprogramming these things and change that for you. This is why the work that I do is a long-term program. It's not like a one-time, you're going to get on a call with me and then you're going to change your belief systems. Like we have to work on reprogramming this, just like if we were going to go to the gym and lose weight. We have to work out consistently in order to tone our bodies, or to, get on the treadmill regularly, or whatever that might be. You can't just do it one time and then it's done. This is a practice. So if you're committed to practicing, then obviously you're going to have greater results. Okay, so you can try to do clearing of your subconscious blocks if you want to try this on your own. However, the first thing is to be aware, right? So we have to know, that's why I gave you that whole list. There's like 12 things. You have to know what the subconscious blocks are and what the subconscious beliefs that are creating those blocks are first. And if you think of it like an iceberg, that top little 5% that's at the top that says, I want to achieve this, and I want to be in a good relationship, and I know that I'm worthy, right? That's only running 5%. 5, that's tiny, right? That is a minuscule amount. 95% is what's going on below the surface of that iceberg, right? Oh, it sounds like a thunderstorm's coming through here. Anyway, the things that you can do, if you haven't ever tried, would be regular therapy, would be hypnotherapy, visualization, meditation, journaling, self-reflection. Like these are all simple things that you can try on your own to start figuring out what these subconscious blocks are and start to clear them. Now, these have been shown to be very effective for people, but the work that I do is a little bit different because I have a tool that actually reprograms your neural pathways in your brain. It is a coaching tool that we use, and you put pen to paper and you work the process, and you continually do this, and you spend 10 to 15 minutes a day, or 20 minutes every other day, starting to reprogram your mind, similar to if you went to the gym, basically, except for you're doing it on paper and it's mental work instead of physical work. And then when you do this and you start to get these shifts, and people have said to me like, oh my gosh, I feel so much lighter, and I feel like 10 years of garbage has just been released off of my shoulders, and I just feel so much better now, and like confidence, self-esteem, clarity, like focus, emotional resilience and well-being, and then so many more things, right? There's so many things and so many wonderful benefits to this. Okay, so I just want to recap really quickly on this episode about, clearing out your subconscious blocks to achieve your goals. And again, there is a difference between a subconscious belief in the programming that you received when you were a child and the subconscious blocks, right? But the blocks get moved out of the way when you get to the subconscious beliefs, okay? And that can happen in many, many ways, and you can try all different types of tools and things to try to get those to the surface, and then to get them out of your way is going to be a different process, which is fine, and that's what I help people with. And we also use, again, your human design with that. So there are lots of ways that you can know if you have subconscious blocks. Typically, the first indication is like you just feel stuck. But self-sabotage, like I said, negative self-talk, different emotional reactions like irritability or fear or different things, emotional reactions like that are unexplained and you don't understand when you're trying to make progress, that sort of thing. Avoidance behaviors, like if you're avoiding things that could potentially bring success for you. Recurring patterns, so if you notice these things are happening continually. Physical and unexplained physical discomfort, ailments, symptoms, or things that don't have like a real medical reason could have something to do with subconscious blocks for you. An idea of perfectionism or these unrealistic standards, fear of failure or fear of success, lack of motivation, indecisiveness and inability to make decisions, even little ones, comparing yourself to other people, and even being stuck in the past. So, identifying these things is going to be really key to addressing these so that you can clear them out of your way and allow yourself to move forward freely to achieve your goals. Now, I do want to address something really briefly before we leave or end this episode, is that oftentimes you may know that you have a subconscious block or you have belief systems that really aren't serving you, like limiting beliefs and things. You may know that already. The thing is, if you are feeling an element of fear or self-doubt that comes up when you think about clearing out your subconscious, that is a major alarm system that's going off. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I have actually had clients who get so far into clearing their subconscious blocks out of the way, uncovering limiting beliefs, and then they end up almost on the brink of this like amazing breakthrough, and they start to panic. And I often tell my clients before they even begin, like, this is normal. Your brain is not used to thinking these kinds of ways. This is a very different process. So it's so important to be aware that this kind of thing can happen. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you or you can't do it. It just means that those old neural pathways that have been repeatedly taking the same route every single day of your life since you were a child are now a little bit haywire. Now they're starting to jump the tracks and go a different way. But what that means is we're going into the unknown. And for a lot of people, that's very scary. So I will support you along the way. I will virtually hold your hand and give you the guidance, because I've been there too and I know what that feels like. It's very scary. So if you are even doing this on your own and you're starting to feel like, oh my gosh, something's changing, something's shifting, and it's a little bit scary, or you're feeling all these like self-doubt coming in, that's normal. But what we have to do is we have to push through that. Because if we do not push through that, we will just stay where we always were. And if you make that kind of progress, right, you have to keep going. And I think of this like when I was running the half marathon that I ran. And I remember getting about 3/4 of the way through and feeling like absolute garbage. Like my feet were hurting, my stomach was hurting, my lungs were hurting, my knees were hurting. I think I probably was getting a blister. I'm sweating, I'm tired, like all the things. And at that point, I just wanted to be like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm just going to stop and I'm just going to walk. But I was already 3/4 of the way done. And it was like a mental game. Like, no, I have to keep going. I'm almost to the finish line. And that's what I help you do in my coaching programs. I will never leave you. I will never abandon you. I have made friends with my clients years beyond our coaching together. And that's just who I am. And that's what I do. So if you're interested in working with me in any of my programs, if you need me to help you design and tailor a program because your needs are really unique or something like that, just reach out to me. I'm happy to do that. I just use the tools that I know work and can support you and help you along your journey. You are not broken and there's nothing wrong with you. We just got to get to the source, reprogram those things out of your subconscious mind to clear the way so that you can make your life the dream life that you want it to be. So thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you next week.